I am your host, Jakira, and this is the Modesty Testimony. First and foremost, I want to give honor to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who is the head of my life. And this podcast is not for vainglory. This podcast is not for any praise of our own selves, but this podcast is to give all glory and honor to God, to take a journey into our past and show God's mighty hand in our lives and how we've transformed not only outwardly but inwardly, and how we've transitioned and transformed from the world to modesty. So even if you aren't a fashion person, even if you aren't someone who really is into fashion, but you just like to be clean and get dressed and you don't really care about all the extra things, that go into fashion, as a child of God, transitioning into modesty is something that we all have to do and have had to do. And those that are coming in, is something that you have to do, you've had to do or have to do also, So that's right. I just wanted to get started, do the introduction, say welcome. How are you guys doing? I'm glad to be here. Glad for you all to be here also. And yeah, this is the Modesty Testimony. I wanted to start first with my own testimony into modesty so that the audience can have, a background on myself before you see me speaking with other people and bringing other brothers and sisters on to talk about their testimony. I wanted to start first with mine. So I have my questions here. I have all my things here, and we're going to get started. So once again, like I told you, my name is Jakira. I am a child of God in Christ, in holiness. That's my faith. Okay. And now, obviously, being in the Lord and being in holiness, I dress modest. Okay. So first things first, we're going to go to the past. We're going to briefly touch on the past and briefly touch on the apparel of the past, of my past. We're going to touch on that. We're going to keep it real cute. One thing about it, we're going to be honest. Okay? We're going to be honest. We're going to tell the truth. Okay? We're going to tell the truth on here. Okay? We're going to keep it 100. You know how they say, we're going to keep it 100. We're going to tell the truth on here, because if I sugarcoat the truth, or if I try to, we're not gonna go into, we ain't gonna get too crazy, but if you sugarcoat the truth, or if you try to sugarcoat your testimony, that could take away from somebody else, somebody else trying to understand what you're saying, somebody else being like, okay, I can resonate with that, because you're trying to dumb down, you're trying to dull down what you've been through, what you've encountered. So, we're gonna touch on that. I want to make sure I hit all my points. I have my notes. So let's get started. So let's get started. Okay. So past apparel. So first things first, my past apparel, obviously in holiness, the women wear skirts and wear dresses. Okay. So that's every day. We wear skirts and we wear dresses every day, and we cover our heads to honor God every day. Okay, every day. So my past apparel, obviously, I was in the world, so I was not covering my head. So, brief testimony, I was into the wigs, I was into the nails, I was into the lashes, feet done, eyebrows, makeup, full face glam, beat, everything. Everything. Jewelry, nose ring, the whole thing. I was into it all. Okay. So that was that. And the way I used to dress, okay, I had the way I used to dress, sometimes it would be like cozy. It would be like cozy, just to paint a little picture. It was kind of like hood girl cozy swag a little bit. I had my times like that, and that would be Timberlands, my Jordans or whatever, a sweatsuit, a fitted, long weave, the whole thing, So I had my moments when I dressed like that. And then most of the time, I had my moments where my clothes were very revealing. They were very revealing. Obviously, things would be showing, the crop tops, the shorts, the leggings, the bodysuits, you name it, things like that. Now, why did I dress like that? We're going to go deeper and we're going to get into it. I'm going to ask myself some very specific questions and we're going to get into it. But why did I dress like that? When I was growing up, the way I'm the only child, and my mom would dress me, sometimes parents dress their kids the way they dressed. And my mom was a very, she didn't dress really like revealing. She would do the cleavage, but that was about it for her. She really was like a sneaker girl, her jeans, her shirt, her doobie, like all of that. But she wasn't really one to wear the heels and the crop tops and, all the back out and like stuff like that. So she kind of raised me dressing, kind of just real like swaggy, like she didn't really put on me little dresses and skin tight dresses and stuff like that. She kind of dressed me like a little girl. And then as I got older, like it was like the cute little, the little outfits, the cute outfits and stuff like that. Now, now as I got older, and I started to have more freedom, right? As I got older and I started to have more freedom, I want to say I started to have, she did let me wear shorts when I was young. She did let me wear shorts, regular shorts and knee shorts and stuff like that. But for the most part, she kept it kind of cute, but it was like when I started to get older, I want to say, I don't know. When I was young, I was wearing shorts and all that. I still was wearing shorts and stuff. But as I started to get older and having a little more freedom, that's when things rapidly changed and started to get a little more risque. Okay, that's when things started to get like that. And that was the beginning of my why I dressed like that. It just was. We wore shorts, we wore skirts and stuff like that. But as I got older, it started to get a little more on the risque side. So yeah, that was that. The next question says, how did you feel dressing that way? Did you learn to dress that way by yourself or parents? So, like I said, as I got older, I started to get into more of the crop tops and the backs out and all that, all that extra stuff. And how did I feel dressing that way? At the time, I felt, at the beginning, it was kind of uncomfortable or whatever, because to wear your stomach out and stuff like that. I was in my beginning stages of doing stuff like that. But over the time and over the course of wearing things like that, I felt comfortable. Like, I felt normal. Everybody else was dressing like that too. And it was the norm, to have your back out, cleavage out, crop top, this, that, and the other. Like leggings, you wearing leggings, like tights as a part of your outfit. That was the norm, That was the norm. So the next question says, did the media at some point influence your style? The media absolutely. The media absolutely at some point influenced my style because, I'm a 90s baby, and growing up, the Little Kims was out, the Foxy Browns was out. Later on down the line, the Instagram girls started popping up, the Jada Waiters and, Megan Thee Stallions, and all these people start popping up. And I could definitely say the media helped shape my style back then, unfortunately, because the media was just always in your face, like, things on TV and different commercials and, different ads, and just watching all these different things. Obviously, you're going to be influenced by these celebrities or by these different people that you see on TV. And you like, okay, well, if this famous singer, and that was one of your favorite singers or your favorite rappers or whoever, and if she popped up with this new tube top, now you feel like you need to get you a tube top. So the media definitely helped shape my style at some point. Most definitely. Did your environment influence your style? Now, I'm from the hood, okay? I'm in the tri-state area, and I'm from the hood. And the hood, did it influence my style? Most definitely. Growing up, you're in high school, you got your friends outside and all these different people, and you're seeing around you how everybody's dressing, on top of the media, on top of how you grew up and how you were already dressing. You're seeing around you everybody wearing the same stuff. So of course at that point, you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, is what we would call it. You're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and you want to wear this and you want to wear that, and you want to keep up with these new sneakers or keep up with this new outfit or whatever the case may be. So my environment definitely shaped that also. You will go to school, and if these new Jordans came out or if these new sneakers came out and the whole school got them on, it's like you feel left out because you don't have them. So my environment definitely helped shape my style. Also, and in the hood, like, people would crack on you, like, people would throw jokes, you outside and stuff, and people would throw jokes if you didn't dress, the par. People would throw jokes or have little things to say and stuff like that. And you never wanted to feel like the oddball. You never wanted to feel like you didn't fit in. So even if you were an individual, like, I still was an individual at the end of the day. I had my personal style, things that I might have liked, but because of the media and my environment in school and everything, and there was a particular style to have to be a cool kid, I felt like I had to conform to that. I felt like I had to fall in line, or people was just going to be throwing jokes and cracking on me, and I wasn't really going to go for that, So I guess you can kind of say like peer pressure or kind of like pressured. So that actually sucks because, you want to feel comfortable to be able to just wear this or wear that and wear the things that you like without people bothering you or throwing jokes at you or picking on you for being unique. But growing up, that wasn't really the case. Nobody really wants to feel left out. So I felt like I had to conform and fit in. So the next question says, did your friends at that time influence your style? Did my friends at that time... these questions making me laugh. My friends influenced my style. I would kind of say yes and no, because even though I was in the world, the friends that I had, I kind of still was my own person. Like, like, I still was my own person and wore the stuff that I wanted to wear. We wore similar clothes, me and my friends, but at the time, but I still was the type of person that, Jakira was a little different. Kyra was a little different. Like, she gonna wear, what you might have been a little scared to wear. Like, she was bold enough and had that boldness to put that on, like, and stuff like that. But they definitely did influence, because even though, I had my own style, at the same time, you still wanted your friends' approval, you still wanted your friends' approval. You would text your friends and be like, oh, what you wearing tonight? And they'd text you like, what you wearing? FaceTime me, like, and stuff like that. And, even though I was my own individual and had my own style, my friends still were in my mind when I was getting dressed a little bit, because I wanted to make sure I had their approval, kind of like a people pleasing kind of thing a little bit. So, yeah. So that's that. Okay. The next question says, did you feel uncomfortable to dress a different way in front of them? Did I feel uncomfortable to dress a different way in front of my friends at that time? Not so much. Not so much. They were pretty supportive of all my nonsense at that time. They were pretty supportive. They knew I was unique. They knew I was different. They knew I was creative, you know. So if I popped up wearing something that was a little like out there, they kind of was like, that's just Kyra, like that's her, like, that's how she gonna do that. If I wanted to wear something maybe on a little more on the reserved side, would I have cared? Yes, I definitely would have cared, because like I said, even though they were my friends and I was my own individual, I still cared about what they thought. So I still cared about what they thought. Like, you don't want to show up and your friends like, girl, what is you doing today? Like, what look we going for today? I still I still cared about what they thought to a certain extent. I still cared about what they thought. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next question. These are making me laugh. I wrote these questions down, but I didn't want to like premeditate and practice them because I wanted to give an authentic response when I got on live. The next question says, did social media make you feel pressured to show up a certain way? Absolutely. 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 Social media most definitely made me feel pressured to show up a certain way. Where I'm from and where I come from, social media is a place where people show up and they putting on all they diamonds and they putting on all they stuff and they showing off and everything like that. Certain people on their feed and on their algorithm, they didn't have people like that, to worry about anything like this. But coming from the hood and following the people I was following at the time, the mutual friends and things like that, my algorithm was full of people that I went to school with, people that I grew up with, different people I would follow from different states and things like that. And these were people that were into clothes and jewels and cars and hair and nails and all these things. So, and it was a big thing for you to post a picture on your birthday or post a picture when you was getting dressed to go out, because everybody would like it and comment on it and post you and gas you up and all these things. So people paid attention when you post pictures. If you had a reputation in the city, if you had a reputation, in the community, people would pay attention to you, and I guess you can say, I was somewhat popular, I was somewhat popular. Where I'm from, the town is not that big, and kind of like everybody knows everybody and everybody's mutual friends and stuff like that. So I was somewhat popular. And I had a little decent amount of followers, and yeah, I did feel pressured. I did feel pressured. Even though I was in the world, I was in sin, I still felt pressured. I felt pressured to show up on social media a certain way, because I felt like, if I show up and take this picture and this picture is trash and the lighting not right and, my outfit is not right and, body ain't looking the way it's supposed to be looking and all these different things, you felt like you was going to get criticized, or you feel like you were going to get ridiculed. You feel like your reputation might have been in jeopardy, or people were going to talk about you, or all the vain things that go on in the world and in the social media community. So I definitely felt pressure to show up on Instagram a certain way. And let's just touch on that for a moment. That was very exhausting. Okay? That was very exhausting. That was very exhausting. Every time you post a picture, you need to show up a certain way. Like, Do you understand the level you have to go through for the lighting, for the background, for this to be right, for that to be right, for your angle to be right? You need to be perked up and posed in a certain way. It was very exhausting. Very exhausting. Once again, this testimony is for edification and for encouragement. Okay, and not for vainglory, but we definitely just want to take this route, go down this road for the people who are in the body and for the people who are not, for encouragement. Everything that you might see the world doing and things like that, everything that glitter is not gold. Let's just say that. Okay, so yes, it definitely was very exhausting to show up on social media a certain way each and every time. Because if you just, let's just say you wanted to post a picture of you just happy in a t-shirt, enjoying the sun, or you just wanted to post yourself a nice selfie, the people that follow you would be like, girl, what is this? What you feeling earthy today? Like, what's going on? It was a lot of pressure, You just felt like you had to show up and just be tip top shape each and every time you post, and there's no freedom in that whatsoever. So that's that, and we're gonna move on to the next question. I'm really enjoying this. I hope you guys are enjoying this too. I was excited and a little bit nervous, but I was like, it's okay, we're gonna get this together, because yeah. So let's move on to the next question. So the next question says, did you want to dress different during that time? During that time of being in the world, did I want to dress different? I would say yes and no. I would say no because my heart was different at that time. My heart was completely different. My heart was different at that time. I was a completely different person than who you see and who people may know today. My heart was different. I enjoyed dressing the way that I dressed. I enjoyed dressing the way that I dressed. I did have my moments where I wanted to just push the envelope and be creative and go to the thrift and find some artsy, vintage, real thrifty clothes, because I'm just a creative soul like that. And, try this outfit and, put it together in this real creative way, and it might not make sense to people, but the people that's gonna get it. I had my moments when I wanted to dress like that, because deep down I knew that I was creative and I liked to put things together and be different and push the envelope, but I was fearful. I was afraid to show up like that. I was afraid to show up that way because of what people would think. I was afraid to completely be myself and who I knew I really was behind closed doors and deep down inside, because I had an image to uphold. I had an image to uphold. People knew me a certain way. People knew me to be a certain way, and I felt like I had to show up like that in order to still be that girl. Let's say that. Now, guys, we are going to transition into the modest testimony, the testimony of this whole entire podcast. We have journeyed and ventured into the past, and now we're going to be moving on until today. Faith. So first and foremost, I am in holiness. Holiness is my faith. Okay, I serve the Lord Jesus Christ, who is God. That's my faith. And I had to get that out there first and foremost, for people who may know, well, what faith is this? And you guys wear this and cover, and so that's that. And I give him all the glory and all the honor. Okay, how did it feel when you knew you had to pivot? Whew, that is a loaded question. How did it feel when I knew that I had to pivot? I felt afraid. I was shocked. I was scared. I felt like, it was like, I don't know, it hit me hard when the scriptures hit me and the word of God let me know that I needed to change, you know, my apparel and the way I was dressing, it hit me really hard. It hit me really, really hard when I had to get rid of my pants, get rid of my sweatpants, get rid of my, you know, all my men attire. I had to get rid of it. And I could not wear it anymore. Not only that, I had to cover my head. I had to cover my head. I had to cover my head daily. And it hit me. I had to throw away my makeup. I had to stop painting my nails and my toes. And I had to get rid of the jewelry and everything. And it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. It hit me. I cried. I cried, and I had a garbage bag while I was crying, tossing away everything I knew, you know, just everything I knew. To shorten it up, I cried, man. I cried, boo-hoo crying, bawling tears while I'm snatching the stuff out the closet, throwing it in the trash. You know, your journey might have been different. Your journey might be different. You know, do yours the way you're going to do yours with God's help. But with me, I just didn't want to throw away one thing at a time. Like, because I was too fearful. First of all, I fear the Lord greatly. And I was just too afraid. And once I knew what I knew, I didn't want to keep another pair of pants in my sight. I just didn't want to keep another pair of pants in my sight because I couldn't wear them. So it's like, why would I have them sitting here? I can't even put them on. I felt like that would tempt me, and it would probably just aggravate me to just go to the closet and see pants, and I can't wear pants. So as I was crying, I'm throwing it away, throwing the makeup away, throwing everything away. And that was a very hard day. What was your first step? That was my first step. I believe, was that my first step? I want to say that was my first step, possibly, because it was a little, this was like last year sometime. So that was my first step. I did start to throw things away. Thank God I did have some skirts. I did have some skirts already, but the skirts that I had weren't like, they were dressy. Like, they weren't like casual everyday skirts. They were like dressy. But I did have some skirts on hand. So I was just, you know, I was putting those on to go to work. Yeah. I was putting those skirts on, and it was trying. It was trying. The next question says, what did your first purchase look and feel like? I don't remember. I want to say possibly my first purchase was on Shein. I had some skirts before from falsehood. I had some skirts because on Sundays I will wear skirts, you know. So I had some skirts for Shein. I went on Shein because at the time Shein had like some really good prices. And I went on Shein because I'm like, okay, I think I could rack up on some skirts up here for pretty decent prices. So I went on Shein for skirts. Just to get me some basic, simple colors, not too much print, nothing, just some casual everyday skirts. I went on Shein and I got me some skirts. I also went to the thrift store to find just like a black cotton stretchy everyday skirt, because I'm like, black, you could just, you know, you could wash and you could have that on and wear that more often, you know. So I'm like, all right, I went to the thrift store and I went to Shein. So that was like my first couple purchases of my skirt journey. Shein also for my head wraps. I wanted to start with just plain everyday colors, the white, the grays, the smoke gray, you know, colors like that, tan and black. I wanted to start with just plain colored hijabs that I could just wear more over until I started to build up my wardrobe. Thank God. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Okay. How did you feel? How did I feel? It was a mix of emotions for me. It was a mix of emotions for me. I was sad. Of course, I was a little scared. It was new. It was so different. At times it was uncomfortable because I was a I was a pants guy. What? Like I wore skirts and dresses from time to time back then. Like it was like if you put a skirt on or a dress on, you was going somewhere, or you might have just been in the mood to wear a skirt, or in the summertime a maxi dress or something like that. So it was shocking. Like it was like a culture shock. It was like a culture shock. It was pretty comfortable for me though. I was pretty comfortable. I was pretty comfortable because I already kind of had that swag where like I would wear a skirt with some, had the mind to wear a skirt with some boots or a skirt with some sneakers and a leather jacket, throw you a fitted on and stuff like that. But I didn't dress like that all the time. That was just something that I had in mind to do from time to time. So for it to turn into every day, I'm talking every single day, like work, school, not school, but work, going to the store, going to church, everything you do. If you leaving the house just to run to the store, if you just running over to the laundry, everything was in a skirt. Everything was in a skirt. So it was definitely different. It was definitely different. Okay, the next question says, how did you find your new style? And what inspo helped you? So that's interesting. Okay, how did I find, it's a two-part question. How did I find my new style? I was already a person into fashion. So, it wasn't that hard for me to kind of like find my style and make it me and like still have it be like me with some swag to it without, like it wasn't that hard, but I did have my moments where I'm like, how am I gonna do this? How am I gonna put this together? I need some inspiration and things like that. So inspiration, I will watch when I was watching the telecast. I would be watching the telecast and just watching the different sisters in the congregation, just looking and seeing how they tied their hair wraps. Like, how did they tie their hair up? I did wear turbans in the past also. It was like this whole little phase in the past when me and my friends was into like DC and stuff like that, Washington DC, and like that was the swag for them down there. So I was familiar with putting my hair in a turban, but like I said, that was from time to time. So when I ran out of ideas, I would just watch the telecast and look in the congregation just to see just to get an idea of like how are these women wrapping their hair up, and everybody wraps their tie up differently. Some people like it around the neck, some people like it like this, some people just like a silk scarf, whatever your style is. So I would just look to see what's me, like what's my style, like, or just get a gist of how I want to wrap my scarf or my tie, play around with it so I can find me, so I can find my style. Like that was very important, that I didn't look like somebody else or just try to, I wanted to be comfortable. I wanted to be comfortable in this new look. So it was very important for me to find me, like to find my style in this so I could be comfortable. So it was very encouraging to see the telecast, and as I would watch the telecast, the camera, would go around and just see how the other sisters tied their hair up. That was very interesting, and I got a couple ideas from that. Also, inspo, and that helped me was Instagram. Instagram, being on Instagram and just seeing different fashion pages or different people get dressed and things like that. And I'm like, I can still wear this outfit. It just needs to be in a skirt. I can still get like this. It just needs to be in a skirt. Like, of course, applying the bylaws to the way I was dressing also. But I'm like, these are still things that I could do. This certain type of look or this certain type of look. It just needs to be in a skirt or in a dress. So Instagram definitely was some inspiration, seeing different fashion people on Instagram and seeing people in the congregation, how they would tie their hair. And then I just started taking it from there with God's help. I just started taking it from there. Like, okay, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's do this. And my style just started forming after prayer. My style just started forming, asking the Lord to help me. And my style just started to form to the point where now it's like, Okay, so the next question, we're coming to an end, guys. We're almost coming to an end. I hope you're enjoying yourself. So the next question says, did you always feel confident in modesty, or do you feel confident now? Again, another two-part question. Did you always feel confident in modesty? No. I didn't always feel no. No, I didn't always feel confident in modesty. No. No. I did not always feel confident at all. I would say like my first 2 weeks in a skirt every day and wrapping my hair, wrapping my head. At first, it was bad for me. Like, it was like bad, like the way I felt, to the point where if I was in a mirror or coming past a mirror, I didn't even want to look in the mirror. I got to keep it all the way real with y'all. I didn't even want to look in the mirror. That's how bad it was for me. Like, the way it made me feel, not having on my makeup and not having on no earrings and, having to tie my hair and when I tell you maybe like around the first 2 weeks, like if I would come past a mirror, I would if I was washing my hands and I would look up into the mirror, I would just walk out the bathroom. I would just walk out. Yeah. It was very sad. It was very sad. It was very hurtful, but it just highlighted the insecurities that was in my heart. I was very attached to the things that I used to have and the way that I used to look. I was very attached to that, so looking different and the whole transformation into modesty really was like a shell shock for me. And at first it was very uncomfortable. Do you feel confident now? Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel extremely confident now. I'm super confident now. Bless God. I am extremely confident now. Like, now I feel like night and day than how I felt before. I feel settled. I feel, like I found my style. I found the way I like to look. The insecurities are being dealt with, and I love it. Like, now, today, I love it. I feel completely comfortable. I feel, confident. I have fun with it. Like, I have fun. I be having a whole lot of fun in modesty. Modesty is very fun. It'll really try your creativity. So, yes. And last but not least, this is the last question. It says, how do you feel about being modest today? Today, I feel good. Today, I feel really, really, really good in modesty. First of all, it's God's one and only way. Not only am I cleaned up on the outside, but I'm being cleaned up on the inside. My inside has changed, as well as the outside. And I just feel really good. I don't feel like a piece of meat. I don't feel like a piece of meat for people to just be blowing a horn at me when I'm walking down the street. I don't feel uncomfortable, like, it feels clean. It feels really good. It just feels amazing. It feels really comfortable. It feels really clean. It gives me a chance to express my creative side. And it's just God glorifying. And it's really beautiful to be able to be my natural self. Like, have my natural hair, have my head wrapped to honor the Lord. Be in woman's apparel, not pulling down no little skirt all day and covering this and being like, ooh, all uncomfortable in my clothes. Being all uncomfortable in my clothes and just all out there just looking like everybody else. it definitely tries you because you look different. Not only are you different on the inside, you look different on the outside. And it's like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with looking different on the outside. I love to look different. I love to be different on the inside, and I love to look different on the outside too. Especially because it's not being done because of me, but it's being done to please my Heavenly Father. So, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed. This was the first episode of the Modesty Testimony. Once again, I am your host, Jakira, and I wanted to share my journey and my testimony so you can have a backstory on who she is and how was her journey before you see me, adding guests onto the podcast. I wanted to share my journey first for edification and everything. And yeah, guys, that's a wrap. That's all I have for you. I'm so glad you all tuned in. Lord will, peace be. I will catch you on the next podcast.